This edition of the Pest Geek Podcast is brought to you by Pest Routes. Pest Routes, supercharge your company with Pest Routes, the #1 pest control software to help you dominate your goals. Visit them at pestroutes.com and get your free demo.
Pull out your hose and grab your can. We're about to integrate another Pest Geek Podcast. Hi, everybody. Frank Hernandez here, and welcome to the Pest Geek Podcast, bringing you the latest information on pests, products, and politics from today's leading industry sources to help you start, manage, and grow your pest control business.
Hey, welcome back. Welcome back to another edition of the Pest Geek Podcast. I am Frank Hernandez, your Pest Geek, here discussing all things pest. We want to remind our audience to join in on the revolution. That's right, join in on the conversation, be part of the society. Pest Geek Podcast Listeners Group on Facebook. And we're on YouTube, we're on the web, pestgeekpodcast.com. Check out there the notes, everything that we put into the podcast. They're all on there. And now for today's topic. I got on the phone Jim Gorman, Corporate VP of Marketing for Nisus Corp. Hey, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Frank. Oh, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. So I understand a lot of things are going on. You guys are getting hit with the floods, and a lot of homes are getting damaged. And you contacted us about discussing what you guys could do to help. And a lot of guys are going to probably be hurting and being on hold for some of this stuff, and what you guys can do for them. So I think it's an awesome opportunity. Just tell us a little bit about you and a little bit about your company. That way people who don't know about you can know.
Well, Nisus Corporation has been around since 1989, and our first product was Boracare. And Boracare was developed as a log home preservative, and then the inventor Bud Dietrich found that it killed insects and killed termites, and so he registered it as a pesticide. And as you know, today Boracare is the #1 termite pretreatment in the nation. We've probably got about a 45% market share of new construction homes that are treated using Boracare. And so far, it's been a great ride. Now we have a full line of products for pest control. We have a division that sells chemicals into the wood preservation industry. So we have copper naphthenate that is a replacement for creosote and pentachlorophenol. And so we have that, and we're starting, hopefully we'll start another division this year, so that's kind of exciting. So, but Nisus has been part of the flood work really since Katrina. And our company was on the ground after the Ninth Ward flooded, and training pest companies how to go in and disinfect, because as you know, when there's floodwaters, those floodwaters are not just nice clean water. They've got a lot of toxic elements in there, garages flood, all sorts of things that, release things into that flood water. And you also have a high level of E. coli and things like that. So one of the things that we saw is that people didn't understand that they really needed to protect themselves when they were doing clean out, and they needed to disinfect the structure. So we taught pest control companies to do that. Then we showed them how to apply Boracare with mold care, which kills mold and helps prevent mold from growing back to the structure, to the wood in the structure. And then, of course, whenever there's a flood, termite treatments have to be reapplied as well. So we have gone down into these areas, and starting with Katrina, there was a number of companies down there who's really lost the majority of their customers, and they didn't have things for their employees to do. And so by getting this program setting up and helping them help their community rebuild, we were able to help these companies put their employees back to work. And we've had a couple guys tell us that, we really saved their companies. So, but then as more floods came, Baton Rouge was another one, and we were down there, and Houston, we were down there, and Knoxville has had some flooding in the last week or so, just from a heavy rain event. We've got a small number of houses flooded compared, like maybe 800 homes that have been flooded. But it was, we probably had 140 roads closed at one point in time. So it's,
Wow.
And it's still, the water is still receding. We've still got probably 40 roads that are closed that you can't get past. So we, this is the first time we've kind of dealt with this in our backyard.
Gotcha.
But generally what happens is when there's a flood in the area, we go down, we work with distribution to set up meetings. We have the pest companies come in. We train them on flood remediation. We train them on mold. Some guys want to do some of this work themselves. Some guys want to just work with other providers. So they want to work with construction companies or cleanup companies. Companies like ServPro, who go in and clean out a structure and dry a structure. Then the pest company can come in and apply Boracare with mold care to the structure when it's ready to be treated.
Gotcha. So yeah, let's go back, because you mentioned because there's a couple of avenues here. From what I see, I mean, it's obviously a tragedy when this happens, but if you can go in and solve a problem, I think that is the plus of having these guys who know how to do a lot of these things already. But you're talking about decontamination, and
right.
We don't even consider that right now. I mean, a guy who doesn't do this for a living, like me, I'm not in that arena. I'm not considering that decontamination of a property is going to be necessary, and who's going to do it. And so what would you do in that situation? How would you decontaminate a property?
Well, we actually developed this product called DSV, which is a disinfectant, sanitizer, and viricide. That's what DSV stands for. And we actually developed it for Katrina because we had, we saw that there were some serious issues there, and we needed something that could be a broad spectrum disinfectant, but also would kill viruses, because a lot of times there's viruses in the flood water as well. And so 1 gallon of DSV makes 64 gallons of solution. And so that product is you go into the structure before you start cleaning it out, and you basically just soak everything down with the DSV. And then once you've cleaned the structure out, then you go back again and pretty much hit everything that's been flooded with the DSV, and that gives you kind of a clean environment to start your rebuild.
Gotcha.
And it's similar to what we deal with in the pest control. The guy goes into an area where he's got a bad bird infestation, he's got all these bird droppings. Well, you can disinfect that area before you start the cleanup, and then after the cleanup as well. Same thing with bat guano and rodent droppings, all that kind of stuff. So things like hantavirus and avian flu and those kind of things can be, you can protect your workers.
Yeah, because one of the things that I saw, and I've seen it on a couple of remodeling shows where they're going in and they're doing, after like a damage like this, and they're going in with no suit, no respirator, nothing, and I'm like, that doesn't look right.
You're like, not smart.
No, I mean, you need to be like, I tell people, there's no way I'm crawling in a lot of attic spaces and crawl spaces without a suit, because I don't know what's down there. But I mean, this is one of those things that people that do pest control, and a lot of people don't know this, that you have to go in first decontaminated before you send a crew in to start pulling stuff out, and where the protection that they're going to need. And that one's, to me, I mean, a lot of people wouldn't know this. I mean, I got a lot of clients that start doing stuff on their own, they're going to hurt themselves or hurt somebody else. So that is an awesome thing to know. And so now you go in and you
basically, whoever does the clean out, the company comes in, does a clean out, whoever it is, and then now you have to deal with treating the studs again or whatever. What's that process like? What do you do there?
Well, what we'll usually do is immediately as soon as you have access and the place is cleaned out, you can apply bore care with mold care, and you don't even have to wait for the wood to dry. As a matter of fact, the borates migrate into the wood based on moisture. So even if the wood is wet, it's great to just hit it right away, because then you stop. And these houses may sit for a very long time. I mean, we've even had some that sat for so long the guys had to go in and do a second application after 3 months, just to make sure that mold wouldn't grow until they got the house squared away. So that treatment is done, and then the bore care treatment, which is the termite treatment, is a 2 foot. And bore care with mold care is a 5-to-1 dilution, but when you're doing termites, you have to have a 1-to-1 dilution. So you'll just take regular bore care at a 1-to-1 and do that 2 foot band treatment.
Okay.
Then here's one of the big problems that we saw in Baton Rouge, is that then you have to wait for that house to dry. So you got to put, the fans in, you got to put the dehumidifiers in, and you got to bring that wood down to about a 19% or lower moisture content. So you can't close up those walls until you've got that moisture content down where it needs to be. And one of the, there's a company, down in Louisiana, Baton Rouge, who did a lot of work in Katrina and has done a lot of work in Baton Rouge. And they've had to go back on literally hundreds of houses that other customers or that other companies would close up the walls before the wood was dry. And all of a sudden, those people have mold growing in their walls. So they've paid to have their house repaired, but they didn't make sure it was dry before it was closed up. They trapped the moisture in the walls. Mold starts growing in the walls, starts growing right through the sheetrock, through the drywall.
Right.
So, and you can imagine how frustrating that is for a family. So we really do 2 things. One, we go down and we try to train pest control companies on how to do this and how to do it correctly. And then secondly, we try to do community outreach, through media and television, and talk to people and let them know that, hey, you've got to make sure that moisture content of the wood is 19% or below before you close those walls. Yes. And that takes some time sometimes.
Right. And what do we do with a home now that had, somebody just did a termite treatment, 6 months ago, and now it got flooded, and that termite treatment needs to be repeated because you don't have, they need to do that again.
You definitely do. And usually we try to work with the Department of Ags and get them to put out a notice to homeowners so that they know that, because, that's the last thing homeowners going to think about when they're dealing with a flood. But it's important that they do, because you've got all that moisture in the ground and you've got all that, it makes the home very susceptible.
Right. So they need to whatever was done is basically washed away. And it needs to be redone again. What are the concerns? I mean, I don't know if this is your area of specialty or not, if you deal with this, but with the issue of flooding, termite treatments, and the issue with soil and water, as far as an environmental concern there, is there an alternate solution? Is there anything else people can do as far as, because I know you guys deal with termites and wood WDOs. What are the alternatives? Is there anything else that needs to be done?
As far as for termites?
Yeah.
Well, obviously, if you have soil termiticides, then those are going to be washed away.
Right.
And soil termiticides need to be reapplied at a pretty regular basis. Boracare, because it is a inorganic mineral salt, the active ingredient is actually a mineral salt. Once Boracare is applied to the wood, it remains in the wood for the life of the wood unless the wood is exposed to a flood. And in a flood, then some of that borate will leach out and you will have to go back and reapply.
Gotcha. Okay.
And if you use bait stations, it's the same way. Those bait stations become ineffective after flooding. And even if you can find them, sometimes there's so much junk that gets washed on top, you wouldn't even be able to find them again. So in any case, it's, those things have to be done. Now, we have a lot of people who do multiple treatments. We'll have people who would do bore care treatment on a house and then use bait stations. And we've even got, some large, custom home builders who actually do all three. They'll do a soil and they'll do a bore care treatment or a bore care, mold care, whole house treatment as a preventative.
Right.
And then they might use bait stations, especially when you get into formosan areas. When you get into formosan areas, you pretty much have to have a whole house bore care and bore care with mold care treatment in order to protect the structure. Because just like drywood termites who can make an aerial attack on a home, formosans can do that as well.
Right. Is there anything that the pest control people can do in a situation like this, as far as them coming together in activism or some type of whether it's with National Pest Management Association or their local association, what is being done in those situations, and how do the people get involved and get everybody informed?
Well, what we see in the cases of the flood we're dealing with at Knoxville is relatively small, so it's not going to get that type of big attention. But like what we saw in Houston and Baton Rouge, the NPMA comes together and takes donations. There's a number of pest companies who come from other areas to help out and to provide additional labor. A lot of the manufacturers, including us, make donations to the flood victims in those areas. So our industry, really steps up to the plate when there's these type of things going on. And the other thing that I think we do a good job of is, we kind of make sure that people are doing the right thing. And I've seen a lot of peer pressure be applied to a company that wanted to take shortcuts. And the other thing is, like in Baton Rouge, we had so many out-of-state companies that come in and try to do repairs. A big part of this is really getting out and telling people, hey, you can't close up those walls until you reach this 19% moisture content. And if you do, you're going to have to do this job over again. So, and everybody kind of works hard to make sure that information gets out to the consumers, because, the guys who might be coming in just trying to do as many jobs as they can, they're not too concerned about that, because they're going to move to the next area where there's a problem, and they're not going to stay. The pest control companies are here to stay, and we're here to make sure that, customers are treated correctly and customers get what they need. And, we're here to help people, not hurt them.
Right.
We're here for the long haul. So that's kind of a nice thing. But we've really seen, and we've seen the distributors come together. And how, distributors are extremely competitive and very territorial. But in a lot of these cases, we've seen the distributors say, hey, we need to do a meeting together. And we'll do one big training session, and all the distributors will be there. So
nice.
that's always been, that's been a great thing to see.
Yeah. No, that is totally awesome. Is there anything else that we need to know? Hey, by the way, anything new coming down the pike? Because all the listeners want to know about anything new coming down.
We have a couple products in the work, but they're not things that I can really talk about yet.
Okay, good enough.
Yeah. But we do have some good ones, and I tell you what, I'll tell Lindy to let you know when we can talk about them, and we'll give you guys a call and kind of run through them.
Absolutely.
That would be fun. I would say we do have there is one thing that we've got going that is, kind of been building very steadily, and it's not so much a product as a methodology that we've created for dealing with small flies in commercial kitchens. And one of the problems with those small flies is that they can breed in all these little areas. And you've probably seen it when you've gone into
Yes.
even a very nice restaurant. You'll go and you'll see those small flies. A lot of times they're living in the drains. And we've developed a protocol and some equipment that you can use to foam the drains. And it closes the drain and just pumps foam down in the drain past the P-trap. And the product we use is Nibor D, and what Nibor D does is that application will kill the flies, but at the same time, it will take all that gunk and grime that's there, and it'll turn it into an insecticidal bait. So when you foam all these things in a commercial kitchen, and you foam the cracks and the crevices and the drains and the wall voids and the soda drains and all that type of stuff, then what happens is, you kill anything that's there, but then you also turn all that minute food debris into a bait. And so we are getting control in places where people have never been able to get
Right.
control.
Yes.
So that has been really great. I had one of our guys, we had one customer who had a big ballpark bar right next to a ballpark, giant bar, lots of open windows and doors, dumpsters outside the open doors. They had a huge small fly problem, and the customer was sending 2 technicians every single week to work this, basically to try to keep on top of the small fly problem. We went in there with them. We go in with the PMP and would do the treatment. We'd show them how to do it and so forth. And so they went from having 2 technicians a week to not having a callback for 40 days.
Oh, that's
So that's huge.
Yeah.
As far as labor savings and so forth. But we've kind of thrown this out, and we've said, hey, give us your toughest small fly problem, and our tech will go with you, and we'll solve it. And we haven't been beat yet. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah, no, that's exactly. I was just doing a training conference yesterday, and the guys asked me, off the topic, we were talking about landscapes, and what do I do about small flies? Says, hey, Nibor D and DSV.
Yeah.
That's it, man. That's my solution. That's what we use in all our facilities, government, because it is an eco-friendly option. I mean, it's much more eco-friendly than trying to put, pyrethroids everywhere to solve this problem. That
Yes.
you're not dealing with the drain. Everybody's like, well, we're using, pyrethrum fogging and, we're doing this. Yeah, but you're not dealing with the drain problem. You're masking.
You're not.
So
You're not finding the harborage, and that's what you got to do.
Yeah, and the tiles and the loose tiles and the water, and they're hosing it down, and all those little areas. We tell people you got to deal with all that. Mop the thing down, and that's it.
Yeah, and when you turn it into a bait, it's like, well, next time they try to come in there and they try to lay eggs and they try to feed on it, it kills them. So it's been a pretty great solution, and it's really grown dramatically, and man, helped a lot of companies. We had a bakery that they were open basically 24/7. I mean, they closed down for I think 4 or 5 hours on Sunday night, and the pest guy came in and he said, look, you got to clean this. I mean, underneath the equipment, there was just huge amounts of grease. And he said, we're not shutting down. So, either you solve the problem or we'll hire somebody else that will. Well, the guy's already gone through 5 pest control companies in no time. And, he's, and that's what you're seeing. You're seeing a lot of companies that either refuse or just don't do a very good job of cleaning. And when that happens, that's what you get. But now we went in and did that treatment, and the guy came in on Monday morning, and the employers were sweeping up thousands of cockroaches.
Oh, wow.
Thousands of cockroaches all over the place. So, they solved the problem even though the customer was not doing what they should.
Right. No, yeah, there's always finding a way around that, and that's the ticket there. But no, yeah, I love we use that product extensively. We carry that on the trucks, and both products, because that's awesome. And one another product that people don't know a lot about, but I use it for my American roaches, and I love it, and it's magnetic, and it doesn't get a lot of attention.
Yeah, that's a 33% boric acid bait. It was actually developed in Chicago by a guy who was doing pest control for public housing up there, and he wanted something that he could put out once a year as a really powerful control for the cockroaches. And so he developed that formula. We bought it from him a few years ago, and the how you normally see the bait in the syringes, which we have for magnetic roach bait, but we also have these jars, and a lot of the companies apply it with the jar. They just use a putty knife, and they go into wet walls, and they go into areas, where by the dumpsters and things like that, and they'll put that out, and that they build a business on doing once a year treatments in some pretty rough environments, and then they would just take care of callbacks. But and magnetic roach bait doesn't ever dry out. It doesn't ever get hard. So, it's a great product from that standpoint.
Yeah, see, I didn't know that. I didn't know that it didn't get hard. Let me ask you this. So were they using this for mostly American roaches or Germans too?
No, Germans too.
Okay.
Germans too.
Yeah, because I discussed with Harry a while back. I said, I really want a 100% borate type of service for certain environments that refuse to have synthetics. And I know he was working on it, and I think you guys already completed that PDF protocol on for roaches using your product. So what is it? It's basically magnetic with and NIBRD
and Niban.
And Niban.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, see, Niban is the granular.
Gotcha. And granular because I know I've read a couple of studies on it where they did use Niban for German cockroach, and that was good. And we're trying to get a couple of protocols like that together. And I know a lot of the guys out there who are wanting to do eco-friendly pest control. It's an awesome option to do something like that.
We had this super nest of cockroaches up in New York State, and this guy had he had a big trench, a big valley on a piece of property, and for years he would just put stumps in there. And I mean, for probably 20 years, he just threw stumps and wood and everything like that. And then he, put dirt over the top of it and was going to use the property. Well, the neighbors around there, a super nest of cockroaches formed down in that area with all the stumps, because you got all the stumps that are rotting. You got all that heat generated by them. You got all those pockets of space, and the cockroaches were just crazy, infesting all the neighbors around this piece of property. And so we got called in, and basically what we did, you know how sometimes you'll put those little, how when you're trying to find out how many cockroaches, you'll put those little paint cans with some Vaseline on the inside, put some beer in them, and put them out there just to see how heavy the population was. Geez, those things were just overflowing with roaches. Wow. And so, it was just enormous. And what we did is we just took a number of sites down there, and we drilled down, and we just made all these different places where we were just putting that Niban bait into the area. and we were able to get control. We weren't able to eradicate because it was so big. We couldn't really get into every little corner of it, but we were able to get enough bait into the thing where we got control of it, and it stopped being a problem for neighbors. But this thing was probably a half mile long. So
wow.
Yeah, so we know it works. And then the other thing that is I've always really liked about Nyban is that up at the Central Park Zoo has an aviary, and they had a huge cockroach problem in the aviary, and they would put down, granules, but the birds would eat the granules and they would die. And so we started using Nyban up there, and we quickly got control. The birds actually don't eat Nyban. We did a test not too long ago for one of the government agencies, and the birds really just don't eat Nyban. But even if they did eat it, it doesn't kill them, because the way Nyban kills is insects can't excrete liquids. All other animals can. So if we get too much, you get boron in your system when you eat a salad, and it's a micronutrient, and so you actually need a certain amount of boron in your system, because it's, if you look at a multivitamin, there's little bits of boron in there, because that's part of what we need, and plants need it. So it's, it's part of nature. But if we get too much boron in our system, we excrete it through our kidneys within 24 hours. But insects can't excrete liquid, so they can't get rid of boron. And when boron builds up in their system, it basically, there's two big molecules. One's called NAD and one's called DHE. And when those two molecules hook together, they make NADH, which is the big molecule that breaks down sugar. And so when you load up an insect with boron, the boron attaches to the NAD, so they can't make that big NADH molecule, and they can't break down sugar. And so they basically starve to death. Even though they're eating, everything seems to be working fine, but they can't get any energy from their food. But also, because that molecule never gets made, it can't mutate. And so, for 2,000 years, borates have been an effective pest control measure that, they have not been able to develop resistance against it, and they won't be able to, because resistance is usually when those big protein molecules mutate. Oh, so if it never gets made, can't mutate.
Wow. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Yeah, no, I mean, you always wonder, people are like, well, how does, the boric acid work? And, we've used it and we kind of understand it, but a lot of people are like, oh, they don't understand the mode of action because it's not one of those hot topics. Everybody's looking for the latest thing. And I keep going back to hey, some of this stuff still works, and there's no resistance. But if it isn't new and it isn't sexy, people aren't considering it. We're always looking for that new, residual product that's going to save the industry. And we neglect a lot of this stuff.
A lot of those products over the years too. I mean, there's some great products out there, but one of the things we've just seen is that this is a good underlayment to any program that you're running, especially with, Nyban is such a great maintenance bait. You just do a perimeter treatment around a house, and it's there for ants, it's there for cockroaches. And especially early in the spring, like we also use our Dominant, which is a liquid ant bait. When you put out Nyban and you put out Dominant early in the spring, as soon as those nests start to develop, they're out looking for food. And you get control early in the spring, you're saving the population. You're reducing the population all year when you get that control early in the spring, and that just makes your job a lot easier.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about, because you brought up an interesting, most of the time we don't consider boric baits or borate baits for ant control. And what species of ants have you found that the Nyban is effective for?
Oh, a bunch of them. And I guess the thing is too, it depends on, what the ant needs. Because as some days ants want carbohydrates. Some days
Right.
they want sugar. Some days they want liquid. And so, one of the important things is just having that out there for them. So Niban has protein, it has carbohydrates, it has sugars, and it has a lot of attractants as well. Just food grade attractants that
Gotcha.
that are delicious. And so we see a lot of control, but it's not always what they're looking to eat.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
that's one of the issues. But I've been using Niban around my house for, gosh, I don't know, 15 years. And just once a month I'll walk around the house and apply Niban, and that's
Gotcha.
pretty much all I do.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a great product.
On the Dominant, do you guys have exterior stations for Dominant?
Yeah. There's little snap stations that you just snap them and they open up, so you don't have to cut them with scissors. And they're sold in boxes of 32,
Gotcha.
and that is a 5.4%. And oh man, ants just love that. They just love it. They'll take that over, over candy. They'll take it over. I've had ants in the hummingbird feeders. Anywhere you find the trail, you just lay several of those down, and depending on the size of the colony, like I've got a mulch pile out back, and I'll get big odorous house ants nest there every year. And once they hit the house, I'll just put out 6 little Dominant stations, and they're all over them. And usually they'll empty one of them completely, and I'll put another one in, and that pretty much solves the problem. But if you've got those big colonies, even you wipe out the colony, there's still another colony that'll come and take its place after a little while.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
but we've seen good success with a lot, and one of the ants that's really tough to get sometimes is carpenter ants, and so carpenter ants are very attracted to Niban, and it's a great way to knock them out. So you got a carpenter ants, you see some, and it's the source is a wood pile. You just apply Niban all around that wood pile, and it generally will take care of the problem.
Got it. No, yeah, I definitely big fan. You guys are one of my favorite companies in the whole world.
Oh man, I like hearing that.
Yeah, no, it is because of we are down here in Miami. We're really one of like 3 companies that really focus on being natural, organic, eco-friendly. That's our main thing.
Yeah.
And we do a lot of work with organics, but there's not a whole lot in the marketplace for indoor use for controlling a lot of these problems that are natural and organic that can be used indoor.
Right.
We use a ton of essential oils in our landscapes, but nobody wants that inside the house. And what we found is the borate products that we use from you are a lot of solutions for a lot of these clients, because that's our major solution. So that's one of the things that I love about you're really unique in the marketplace, because you focus on these borates and developing borate products that solve multiple problems that nobody's doing. So that
and I think on an interior basis, what we see a lot is people will go in and they'll use Niban to as a bait under the kitchen cupboards,
right
behind the stove, those kind of areas. They will pull off the light socket or the plugs, and dust into the wall voids, dust into the plumbing penetrations, and then up in the bathrooms where sometimes you'll see silverfish, they'll put Niban FG up under the cupboards there, and that is a great way to control silverfish. There's not much out there that really controls silverfish, and Niban FG does a great job of that. And then we have a lot of people who dust attics and that type of stuff with Nibor D. And you you really lay down a great foundation when you can get dust into those inaccessible areas, the soffits, the wall voids, the plumbing penetrations, and then, you use your bait to target those key pests that get in there.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's, we do it we treat crawl spaces. We got a lot of crawl spaces here. We don't, and so we have to treat them. We get a lot of issues with Americans down there. So we use a lot of the NIBAN in those areas.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. As far as mold, I know that baits are issue with mold on the NIBAN. Talk to me a little bit about, the how long does this usually last on outside, things like that with dealing with issues with humidity and water? Because I know a lot of baits get damaged with humidity and water.
Right.
How does that?
And really, a lot get damaged with sunlight. There's a lot of actives that once they're exposed to sunlight, they degrade immediately. So NIBAN does not degrade in heat. It does not degrade in sunlight. And it will actually remain active, have enough to kill even through 4 inches of rain.
Right.
So it's a great quarterly bait from that standpoint. And because the boric acid will actually stop the bait from molding. And, that's one of the problems that, if you put out a bait and it's a very humid environment, the bait will start to mold. And because of the active, NIBAN bait doesn't mold.
Right. So that's because it's a huge advantage for us down here in Florida, where, the humidity is always at 90%. even in Christmas, we'll have 98% humidity. We don't know. People call me and tell me, we're snowed out. It's winter. I'm like, what is this winter you speak of? I have no idea. We have no clue what they're talking about. We're clueless down here. So that's been, one of the things, that finding products that work for us in our environment. And like I said, those are the things that we've been using. We carry pretty much everything that you sell, other than termite stuff, because we're not into termite, but we pretty much carry, the products. And that is a huge competitive advantage for us to be able to, and it's a learning curve, because you got to learn to do things differently. And most people just, want to spray something, and we're like, nah, it takes a while to get it done, but we don't have to, for the clients who don't want it. We have clients who absolutely refuse synthetics on their property. And, that's growing. That's a growing market, because more and more people are demanding it. That's the reason we got into it, because we saw the demand, although it's a small demand, maybe 4% of the market right now, but it is growing. And that, that serves a real niche, in the marketplace. So if anybody's listening, I don't know if anybody listens to this podcast, so I got to, so I'm just, we're putting it out there, kind of like, if there's life out there somewhere, we're here, so that's it. But yeah, anything you want to add, Jim? I mean, you're gracious. Thank you for your time. Anything that I didn't ask you that you wish you could have told me about, that would be beneficial?
No, I think we covered an awful lot of bases. I would say that when you're in those crawl spaces, look for mold and decay fungi to start there, because with that high moisture content in crawl spaces, a lot of times you'll get that. And so we have a lot of guys who will apply the boric care with mold care in crawl spaces to kill the mold and keep the wood from decaying, because obviously decaying wood is much more attractive to termites and wood boring beetles and all that type of stuff as well.
Oh, excellent.
We did launch a woodboringbeetles.com website to kind of help educate people on wood boring beetle damage and how to treat for that. And boric care is really a great treatment for wood boring beetles, because it will actually penetrate the wood. You can spray the surface, and then it will actually penetrate the wood, and you'll still have beetles emerge, but they won't be able to reinfest.
Gotcha. I'm going to put up a link to that. Woodboringbeetles.com?
Woodboringbeetles.com.
Perfect. I'm going to put a link to that in the podcast so people can access that.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, awesome, man.
Yeah, it's a good resource. We just tried to make it. It's really we tried to make something for consumers so that they would go and see and they would kind of understand and tell them to hire a pest company and all that kind of stuff.
No, excellent. That is awesome. Yeah, we get a lot of homeowners that are starting to listen to this podcast, and property managers and people. So we're trying to reach out to people and try to, you see what we can do to link everybody up together.
Well, and the other thing is that, when you think about our industry, our industry has gotten very sophisticated. Our industry has gotten very intelligent about the way they go about business, about the way they treat, and I think it's important. The more information we get out there, the more
Yes.
people understand that you see a bug, and a homeowner sees a bug and they want to kill that bug, and they might go out and get a spray, or they fog a
Right.
house or whatever. But a pest control professional is going to be the guy who goes and finds the problem.
Right.
You see one, but there's probably 100.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we're going to go find the 100.
Yeah, they're dealing with the symptom, not the actual cause. And
Exactly.
and then that's a common thing. Yeah, I get customers call me, I've put the pills, I put the foggers, we've done the fume bombs. We're at our wits' end. We don't know what else to do. And that's usually the time they break down and call me, because they've already done everything. And I go in and I find dust and boric acid and pills everywhere, all over the place. And that does more damage to them than I will probably do in the next 20 years of providing their service.
Right.
So they're putting a lot of themselves at risk by thinking that over-counter products, by misapplying them, they're not going to have a problem. And that's where the professional comes in and doesn't have to, literally, tent this whole house to try to solve the problem. They can solve the problem, by going straight to that source. So hopefully we can get the word out to everybody, and everybody works together on this to educate the client. I was born in the 70s. I don't know when you were born, but I was born in 1970, and I remember the Cy Sims. I don't know if you remember Cy Sims from New York. He used to own Sims men's clothing, and an educated consumer is our best customer. And
Absolutely.
and that is what we're going after, trying to educate the consumer to understand what a real professional pest control service should look like, so that they can get the best person they can. And there's hundreds of thousands of them in this country that can do the job. So Jim, I thank you so much for this and for coming on and helping us out and giving us this great content for our listeners. People, website is what? Nicest.com?
Nicestcorp.com. NISUSCORP.com.
Yeah, perfect. And then they can go in there and look at all these products online, and they're pretty much sold through every distributor.
And then we also have nicest.tv, and that's where we host all our videos.
Oh, excellent. So I'm going to let me put a link to that too. Nicest.
Yeah. Just nicest.tv.
.tv. Excellent.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So that's great. Well, Frank, I really enjoyed it. It was fun talking to you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. We'll do it again. Tell Harry to send some barbecue.
Okay. Will do.
Yeah, man. He makes me hungry. I'm on this diet. I lost 20 pounds. And then he keeps posting stuff about barbecue. So not fair.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because, once you've had Harry's barbecue, then you kind of use that as the measuring stick for everybody else.
I know. I mean, I see that guy winning. He's winning all these awards and everything. He's just amazing.
Yeah, we'll say, yeah, that's good. It's not as good as Harry's, but it's good.
Yeah. Excellent, man. Well, hey, I'll let you go, and you have a great one. And again, thank you so much for coming on.
All right. Thanks, Frank.
All right. Have a great one. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
We hope you have enjoyed this edition of the Pest Geek Podcast. Until next time, have a pestacular day.
Thank you for listening to the Pest Geek Podcast. If you have enjoyed the Pest Geek Podcast, please give us a rating, write a review, or subscribe to the channel. You can join the Pest Geek Society by visiting pestgeekpodcast.com. Thank you for listening. See you next time.